Good evening. The September 18th meeting of the Wayne County, Indiana Advisory Plan Commission is now open. Laura, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Saunders.
Yes, here.
Mrs. Scruggs.
Present.
Mr. Phelps. Mr. Phelps.
Here, present.
Mr. Hollenberg.
Here.
Mr. Dwanger.
Here.
Mr. Renier.
Present.
And we have a quorum. I trust you had a chance to review the minutes of August meeting. Any discussion, changes, whatever? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
And motion by Gary, and didn't hear the approval of Brad. All in favor of approving the minutes from August 2025, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the minutes are approved. As you can see on your agenda, there will not be a meeting on a regular scheduled date, which would have been October 16th. And there will be no meeting at all in October then. That's correct?
That is correct. I do have two additional items I'd like to share with you. Julie Wilson of the Purdue County Extension, she's the County Extension Director. She did notify me Monday of this week, September 15th, to let us know that she is still working on it. They've had a few nominations, but it's not quite working out, to get someone to fill in. According to the Indiana Code, they have to choose someone to fill in for at least 1 year. They're limited to 1 year. And she is open to recommendations if they know of anyone that's in our jurisdiction that can help. So that's that. Then a separate issue is Don Berger has stepped down from the Board of Zoning Appeals, and his son, Matthew Berger, has been appointed by the County Commissioners to serve on both the BZA, which will pick up, he'll start in October this year, and then he'll also be serving on this board starting in January of next year, so we're really happy about that. We believe he'll be an excellent member. He's wanting to serve, willing to serve on both boards. It's a big deal. It also brings the BZA into compliance with the Indiana Code, because two of the members on the BZA are required to also be Plan Commission members. One of those appointed by the Plan Commission, which we've got, and then another one appointed by the County Commissioners. And so we're slowly getting our membership back up. We'll at least be at 8 at that point. Hopefully we'll get this 9th member, the agricultural extension agent. That's what we're looking for. So, positive movement.
Thank you. We have no public hearings today, so therefore no proof of publication was necessary. No new business under the public hearings as well. So we'll move on just to the open meeting portion of tonight's meeting. Item number 1, the DNR is still working on incorporating the FEMA incorporating the FEMA approved accessory and agricultural structure regulations into a proposed Wayne County flood hazard ordinance, after which the ATC will have a document to discuss and ultimately vote on a recommendation to the county commissioners. So this is just an ongoing saga.
Yes, slight update. I just got a phone call today from Doug Wagner of the DNR, and he will be getting a revised document to me within a week, he said. So
we may have something to discuss next or
correct.
November.
And as it turns out, had we picked this up earlier, say last year, we would have had to do it again because FEMA has revised the model ordinance just recently.
Oh.
So we'll have something even newer. So it's all going to work out eventually. I don't know that I'll necessarily be here for that, so we'll see. I'll do what I can to get it to this board so we can get to the county commissioners. The other side of that is the revision, getting a brand new flood hazard ordinance. Those issues in there, some of them are in the zoning ordinance itself. So the zoning ordinance would need to be revisited to make sure that they match each other. So that's down the pike.
Number 2, the proposed zoning ordinance amendments. You received an email from Laura and her office with her recommendations for changes outlined or highlighted in the blue color. And Laura, do you want to lead the discussion on that?
Okay.
Before you get started.
Sure.
I was halfway, and tell me if I'm just not recalling correctly from months ago. Do you typically hand out the stuff that you email to us, or do we need to print those? I didn't print it because one.
Well, that's my fault. Looks like we'll be needing some. How many of you need them? Zoning ordinance amendment ideas. You've got yours. When you.
I didn't print anything.
I didn't print mine.
We're all.
Okay,
I normally
looks
bring
like
my
we
tablet.
need
I didn't
5
bring
of
mine.
them.
Actually, I forgot it, so.
That'd be a good idea.
Okay.
I don't like paper.
Let's see.
use my
I think it might be up on my computer right this moment. An email. If anything, we could take Mr. Phelps. That'll work. Would you mind? You donated yours to the cause, and then you'll get it back.
I hadn't seen it yet.
Is it a color copier?
It's a,
I don't know if ours is or not. I think it is. Maybe not.
no, I haven't looked at it yet, except,
Your copies.
Six.
You think I make copies on that? That's what I got Bobby for.
Thank you.
While we're waiting on Emily to get back, you also have the handout on the hearing officer petitions to date, as we always get every meeting. Just that's more of an FYI
Right.
for us to have there. Teresa, I don't know why I didn't think to do what you did on reviewing that. I went through and read it and started making hand notes and
And left them at home?
yeah, or my head, one of the two. But what you did here, I don't know why. We shouldn't all approach it that way. Good job.
Well, since you do have the handout that Teresa provided, you'd like to discuss, she's got a comment about the agritourism. That is on the very first page of the proposed zoning ordinance amendments.
Did you guys know that?
And I had highlighted the addition of the words agritourism as a commercial recreation facility use, with the exception of U-pick or self-pick farms and cut-your-own Christmas tree farms, which are permitted agricultural uses. So those 3 uses, U-pick, self-pick farms, that's the same thing really, and cut-your-own Christmas tree farms are actually in the definition of agriculture in the ordinance.
They're in the definition of what?
They're just those items are actually in the section, the definition section of the zoning ordinance under agriculture. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So, let me be clear then. So you're gonna add the part in blue?
Yeah, my thinking was I put that in for clarity, if you prefer not to have it. The reason why I did that is because it's actually in the, under special exception as a commercial recreational facility.
So one of the things that, as a person reading this that is not dealing with this every day, when I read that, my confusion was, well, if agritourism does not include those, why does it say that above? So if you just can clarify that for the normal person reading it, or not put it in? I mean,
Oh, I see your point. Yeah, it does say South Peak Farms up there.
it says, and then you say the
So that
first
needs,
part.
that
and
needs to
then-
be fixed. Yeah, yeah. Good catch.
So,
It says South Peak Farms under agritourism when that really is under just regular agricultural uses. So I would think if it's agreeable, a strike through on South Peak Farms.
In the non-highlighted area.
Right, right.
So on the fourth line, after the words cultural, agricultural activities, comma, Teresa points out that it's redundant or conflicting with the blue, so it calls out self-pick farms. Leave in for farmers markets, leave that in.
Yeah, that would be considered a commercial recreational facility type use, unless you feel differently. Which I'm certainly open to that. We've got some uses going on. It's like, where do you place them?
As far as should the blue insert, should that be a third point versus an extension to paragraph 2? I know it's for clarification purposes, or put it down as a note. I can't remember how we handle notes elsewhere in the ordinance.
We could have it as a note. Because obviously, if this is put in there, we could clean it up a bit. It could be one, and they could be in a proper line, where it's justified on the left, 1, and 2, and 3, and then note at the end, separate. If you like the addition, if you'd like to leave it out. Then, I think my recommendation may be to go to the special exception section of the ordinance. Section 54.349, special exceptions, item 58, recreation facility, comma, commercial. It's got some A1 minimum requirements, district development standards for other permitted uses. Exception, a commercial recreation facility is not permitted within a platted subdivision with 2 or more lots. So, or it could be put, you know, if you wanted to add the words agritourism there, or have its own separate item. I guess what it comes down to is, do you want to treat agritourism as a special exception? A special exception is, the understanding is it's a permitted use, but it's a regulated use. So it goes before the board, so they're not always automatically approved, but commonly they are. So my recommendation is to consider them a special exception kind of use.
I think it should be.
Typically, like falling under the category of commercial recreational facility. Now, our definition of that is a recreation facility operated as a business and open to the general public for a fee, including agritourism. So actually it's right there, including agritourism. So if you think, you know, we don't need that under agritourism, It's a guide. People look at definitions. If you don't want it there, if you think it's causing confusion, we can leave that whole blue section out. Although I do think the self-pick farm section should be removed.
Say that last part
The
again.
self-pick farm section that's not touched, that's part of the current definition of agritourism, should be removed.
Do you,
That's my recommendation, is to leave it under standard agricultural uses.
do you have other instances where you essentially duplicate this note? So does it make more sense to just move it over
We
where you were talking?
we could leave it out if you like. We could,
I can see,
yeah.
as a note of clarification, that was your intent. It
Mm-hmm.
makes sense after the contradiction that Teresa pointed out is corrected.
Yeah, yeah, I like the correction. I think self-pick farms, also called U-pick farms, as well as cut your Christmas tree type things, fall under general agriculture use. The reasoning behind that I have for self-pick or U-pick is that it's very similar to a roadside stand situation. People, they invite people to come and go pick your strawberries, or and they're whole uncut vegetables. It's it's a way for our local farmers to make some additional income. That's my thinking behind that. It's more of a standard agriculture use rather than something that needs a special exception. To me, it's a little heavy-handed to tell a guy that raises pumpkins to have to get a special exception to allow the public to enter his property and pick a few pumpkins, that seems heavy-handed to me.
I think it would be really easy to fix. If you take out the self-pick farms in the original, and then after you talk about cut your own Christmas tree farms, it wouldn't be that hard to add a sentence that says the definition of an agricultural activity includes you pick, self-pick, and cut your own tree farms. It's right there so people can, it's not agritourism, but it still falls under the agriculture. They don't have to go looking around for someplace else for, can that not just be added, that sentence be added after the period after tree farms?
Okay, agritourism and commercial recreational facility use with the exception of U-pick or self-pick farms.
You pick, self-pick, and cut your own Christmas trees
Farms.
is an activity within the agricultural definition of agricultural activity.
I have which are permitted agricultural uses.
That's fine.
But that's what I got. If you like.
Just so
it
it's,
differently.
people that are reading this, that don't do this every day will say, well then, what is, it's defined right there. They don't have to go looking someplace else. That is my suggestion, but, so, I don't want to go on forever on this.
It's okay. If there's another way you'd like me to say, I just have it, which are permitted agricultural uses.
Okay,
So
that's
they're-
fine.
they're,
So you're gonna say you pick, self-pick, and cut your own Christmas tree are, what was the term? Permitted agricultural uses. Perfect.
Okay, so that can stay, but I think striking the self-pick farms from the definition of agritourism, it's currently there. I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
Okay, we'll stick with that. I'll circle that. The animal husbandry, items in yellow, they were last reviewed a long time ago. Any thoughts on any of that? Additional, the highlights in yellow are actually new words, but they were looked at before. But like I said, it's been a while. My thinking was changing the definition, actually it's that whole section. Animal husbandry currently just simply says the keeping, grazing, feeding, and care of animals other than household pets. My recommendation is to consider changing it to the keeping, grazing, feeding, care, and breeding of domestic animals other than domestic pets. And the reason for this is it's tied with the definitions of agriculture and domestic pets in the zoning ordinance. It better matches it. So,
Is there a list of what is defined as domestic pet somewhere?
I don't know that we did that. We came to that.
Fatality kind of implies there's a definition for domestic pets.
I know we got into it with the veterinary stuff. Okay. Domestic pets are animals commonly used as household pets, protection companions, and for assistance to disabled persons. For the purpose of this ordinance, domestic pets are dogs and cats. Let me go into some other items here, but they don't expand it beyond that, which is a little bit surprising. Of course, we are in this proposed thing. It's honoring the same thing that we currently have. We say other than household pets. We're just talking about animal husbandry, and typically the focus there is agricultural animals. You know,
I
you
mean, you could change it
goats,
to ordinary
cattle.
household pets. That cures it right there. Ordinary. Said that. That way you can't come in and say your pet pig is because you keep it in the house. That's not a ordinary.
We didn't want to get into the potbelly pigs or that sort of thing.
Well, are we limiting it just to cats and dogs?
Currently, that's where we're at, based on the
Why don't we say
definition.
that? Instead of saying pets, let's say cats and dogs.
Okay, well, that's fine. We can do that.
And that excludes birds in a cage,
Snakes in the
parakeets and canaries.
snakes in the cage.
We're just looking more like we need to define the animals we're discussing.
But if the intent is to exempt domestic pets, and our definition of domestic pets are cats and dogs,
Just say cats and
then
dogs.
just say it then.
That's fine.
Or use parentheses, and use the IE, cats, dogs.
Yeah, my focus actually was adding the words "and breeding." That was actually more my focus, but that's okay.
And breeding.
On animal husbandry, because under the definition of husbandry, the breeding part is definitely there, and for some reason we don't include that. That's actually come up with a customer. So, anyway, we can have breeding of domestic animals other than common domestic pets. What was it?
Use the I period, E period, comma. That
I think
means
that's the for
specifically what
example,
follows,
or-
nothing else. If you use E period, G period, comma,
Yeah,
that means such as.
That's what dogs. Other than common domestic pets. Okay. It would be IE cats and dogs.
IE would be the one that just limits to whatever is
That's
following.
what I
the
thought.
IE.
So that's what we want. Okay. Okay. Thoughts?
I'm good.
You like that?
104, unit dwelling, accessory, or ADU. adding with the exception of multi-lot subdivisions.
Yeah, this is one of the things that came across. We're trying to clean up the ordinance so that we're not harming our one-lot subdivisions. We have quite a few of them out there, and it doesn't make sense for an owner of a single, it's literally one lot in the whole subdivision, that they have to do something different when no one else in the subdivision is harmed. So I did not want them harmed if they would like to have an ADU. Any thoughts on that one?
The only thing I have, I don't like the word multi-lot, I like
Okay.
multiple, spell it out, but that's the appraiser in me.
Well, we can do that. Multiple lot. We may have some multis out there in the ordinance. If you want those addressed, I can locate them quite easily. Do a word search, highlight them all, and include them in the next go-around. You like that?
Yeah, sounds good.
Anybody else have a problem with that?
No?
Okay, we're gonna do that. Multi, change to multiple. We may have some that are like more than one, or some kind of phrase like that, but anytime I say multi, if the ordinance says multi, we can easily clean that up through this process of amending. The 163 kennel is actually a correction. In the original kennel ordinance, which then was incorporated right into the zoning ordinance, a small kennel is where you have up to 10 dogs over 6 months of age. A large kennel is one where you have more than 10, but no more than 20. So it's more than 10, but it's up to 20. If you see at the very last part on page 1 here, you'll see the words at the very end. It says domestic pets over 6 months of age shall not exceed 20. So it's just a simple error when it was typed up, that's all. It should not say less than 20.
I want to talk about this some more. I spoke to the owner of Hank's Kennel up in Fountain City. And so I've heard the BZA talk about this before. Kennels are a huge business right now.
Yes, they are.
Everyone has pet dogs, cat dogs. We all have grand puppies and everything like that. On any given time, fall breaks or anytime families go on vacation, they all have to put their animals in a kennel. Right now, I don't think the Greens Fork Veterinary Hospital does kenneling anymore maybe for health reasons, but I don't know if they actually keep kennels. So that leaves 3 kennels in Wayne County. And Biscuits, that's what I'm gonna call this, and Hanks have both had to come back to the BZA to ask for variance to enlarge their kennels because they don't have enough space. The first thing on this definition, when you say the primary use is to breed, is that to just breed them and then they go away and have the puppies someplace else? Is that what you're talking about?
They are limited to retaining, in a small kennel, a max of 10, in a large kennel, a max of 20 dogs over 6 months of age. So the puppies have to leave the property before they are over 6 months of age.
Well, they have to leave the property before they were 6 months of age. Because it says they have to be over 6 months, so they wouldn't be born there, correct?
No.
it says for pets over no more than 20 cages for pets over 6 months of age.
Yeah, well, the puppies, obviously, they are not over 6 months of age, so they're allowed to breed them and have the puppies there, but they have to leave the property before they attain that age, so that
Okay.
the numbers are kept at their legal limit.
I think this needs to be, unless, so that essentially there's 3 kennels in Wayne County now. Biscuits, Hanks, and there's one in Abington. And I don't know how large the one, I don't have very much information on the one in Abington. But the 2 that we're most familiar with all had to come to the BZA and get a variance to increase because 20 wasn't large enough. Do you know why we have to keep it at 20? Can we enlarge it to 40?
Well, this is, how old is this? This is from 2015. I mean, if we could look at the kennel situation, what happened in those cases when they felt like they needed to be able to have more than 20 dogs over 6 months of age, if they'd like to board them. It's called an unlimited kennel, and that is actually a special exception in the board in the zoning ordinance, so they would have to
Is
petition
that
the
the
board.
zoning ordinance for Wayne County?
Yep, yeah, if
Okay.
it's over,
Have we looked at any other ordinances?
it may have been done back in 2015, I don't know at this moment.
So my question is, have we looked at any other counties' ordinances on kennels? I mean, is 20, I mean, we just pulled that out of the air, or how did we come up with that?
It was probably looked at. Higginbotham was the one that handled this back in 2015. You know, the thinking was that the small kennel up to 10, that's been a good fit for a number of, we have a number of these out there. The small and the large are both popular sizes out in the countryside. They are permitted use as long as they fall within the parameters. So we do have a number of kennels that are out there that they're primarily breeding kennels. And
Those are puppy mills. They don't follow this.
they
People
are,
don't pay to keep their animals there. I'm talking about the ones where,
But they're still kennels. They still fall under our zoning ordinance. However, those larger ones were grandfathered in when 2015, when this was adopted. Every kennel at that time that had more than the numbers permitted, like under a large or a small at the time out there in the A1 districts, they were all grandfathered in, and we've got notes in these folders in their property files saying how many animals they have. They cannot exceed that amount.
yeah, well, out where I live, there's a lot that aren't even under your variant, under the amendment right now. I mean,
But
there's
if you're-
one that I know that is close, but there's 2 that I don't even think you guys have any idea they're out there.
I can look into it. I guess what I'm curious is you're wanting a large kennel to be able to have up to 40 as a
you
principal
said
permitted
40
use?
runs, cages and pens yeah.
Maybe we ought to clarify breeding and temporary housing. Separate the 2.
That would probably solve that problem with that number, because I think this is intended, even though it includes temporary housing kennel,
Yeah.
I think this is really geared towards breeding kennels.
No, I think it's the opposite. I think it's more geared to the actual kennels, like I guess where I would take my dog if I were going on vacation, flying someplace. Right.
Yeah, because-
That's what I'm thinking, a kennel that is a temporary type kennel,
Right.
not a breeding kennel.
Well, this one, why I say it's geared more towards a breeding, because it says, it talks about 6 months of age, so that way they can have as many puppies they want there, except at 6 months they have to go, because then they have to be under 20 at that point, 20 or under.
Yeah, to keep their numbers.
Where
I think that would be a great idea,
to
to
separate
separate.
breeding kennels and temporary housing kennels for commercial use business.
Breeding kennels and boarding kennels.
Yeah, boarding, there you go. I couldn't think of the word.
Okay.
That's a great idea.
Do you have a consensus on how you'd like to separate that now, or are you going to consider it? And you can- Do you have a consensus about how, your numbers on that, and how you'd like to, I understand what you're getting at, and,
Well, I would say that if we do separate these into breeding and boarding definitions, that the breeding incorporates the numbers that are there.
I'm sorry, what?
The breeding kennels would incorporate the numbers that are contained in the definition right now. And your boarding kennels, because of the fluidity of the number of pets needing to be boarded, will change throughout the year. Figure out a number that is more applicable and conducive to that business operation.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
This 20, that's the number of dogs that you have on here, that's the pups and.
No, I think
Yeah,
that's
it's adult
exclusive of
dogs.
the pups. That's just the breeding animal itself.
Yeah, it goes breeding or boarding currently.
You're assuming you're gonna have one dog to run.
I'm gonna say, because 20 pups is, the first litter of a lot of dogs is,
6, 7.
could be 11, well, they could be up to 11. We had a colony one time, had 13 in first litter.
Yeah, they can have quite a few, that is true, but they can only retain a certain number over 6 months of age. So they have to move those little pups along.
Okay,
And they
so-
know that when I talk to them. I mean, that's the whole nature of what they're doing. They're breeding them to sell.
But they
So,
can keep them there until they're weaned, and then they have to get rid of the pups. It's no more than 20 animals
over 6 months of age for a large.
over 6 months of
currently.
age.
So
But I get your point, that the breeding aspect, that would keep the numbers down overall. If we stayed with 10 breeding dogs and 20 breeding dogs, small, large, like that, but perhaps have a whole different set of numbers for boarding kennels and treat them differently.
I think that's the way to go.
I think you're
Keep the
right.
breeding numbers down, maybe increase the boarding.
Because the breeding ones, clearly, obviously, there's times throughout the year that you will have a number of little pups there. So they'll have plenty of dogs at certain points. But the boarding, that's not a breeding situation. Like, that would be not what they want.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Any ideas about numbers in that case?
I would double it. I would say no more than 40, because the existing kennels, the two existing kennels that I'm aware of, each have over 30. So,
breeding out, showing breeding pairs.
No,
just for boarding.
Oh, boarding, okay.
And they each have at least 30, 32 or something. So if you maxed it at 40, they wouldn't have to come for a
I'm okay with 40 for
zoning ordinance
boarding.
to redo it. Both of them have had to come to BZA to increase their
They're not
lot size, the number of runs. And they have, daycare. I mean, it's not like the old kennels like we grew up with. I mean, there's daycare centers, for the dogs. Quit laughing, Dan. It's true. They're quite profitable. You should start one.
not this fella. Well, do we have a consensus then to ask Laura to proceed with separating breeding kennels and boarding kennels?
Yes.
Do we have to vote on that, or is that just a
No, we're just kind of looking into things now. I'm keeping notes, and so that in the presentation through the full public hearing, it'll all be written up.
Okay.
You know.
And my takeaway is that the majority here on the board would recommend for breeding kennels to keep the numbers that are printed here in the definition, 163. And then for boarding kennels, it was suggested to double the numbers.
240, and that would be, frankly, obviously, a dog of any age
88, correct.
at that point.
There wouldn't be an age
I mean,
restriction.
it could be your little puppy that's been weaned. It could be, your 20-year-old cat. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And that's fair, because you're dealing with a whole different dynamic then. So.
Any further comment on kennels?
Be okay if we leave out all the things about runs and things like that?
On the boarding,
Yeah, I just think they're a different operation.
Yeah.
They're going to have the runs that they need. They'll have the play yard that they need. I don't know if we need to get super nitpicky. I do, one of the things I've got in here is considering measuring, because that's what I've been doing, is I've been, as far as setbacks for these kennels, whether small, large, or unlimited, such as Hank's Pet Lodge. I measure from whatever is closest of the building and include the runs, the fenced area that's close to the building, and I would, because that's kind of the concentrated use area, so I would do my setbacks that way. We have some kennels out there, and typically they're breeding, where they have the building and they have their runs maybe on either side of the building, and then they have a large run area where the dogs get out, and can really exercise. I don't measure from that. I focus on the use where they spend the most time. So I'm just letting you know that's how I've been doing it. There's nothing really in the ordinance that guides me as to, definitely have to measure from the building because it's the structure. But I've been using the fenced runs also, if that's closest to a property line as a setback.
Makes
because
sense.
clearly they're spending time within the runs. So just letting you know I've been doing that. If you feel like that should be included in the ordinance, we can do that.
216, park, playground, or game court. Strike out, as you can see there.
I don't have a problem with any of that.
No, it's fine.
Good there.
Get caught up with it here.
251, roadside stand, a lot of insertion here.
Yeah, there's a lot here, and that leads me to your exhibits A, B, and C. A's, as you can see, is from the Indiana Department of Health, Division of Food Protection. It's Indiana Home-Based Vendor Handbook. A while back, the state of Indiana determined that the citizens have the right to produce home processed food in their own kitchens as long.
Reading from a specific page.
No. But they produce, they call them HVVs, home-based vendors. So people have lists of what they can do, certain baked goods and jams and jellies and candies and just different kinds of things that they can prepare at home and sell directly to the consumer. So that's important to know, and it's regulated. They have to follow certain procedures. They have to label it in a certain fashion. It is definitely regulated, and the people that are doing this are normally very aware of this. You can see from, if you see B, I've come across one where a lady is selling some items, and then another one. So B and C are examples of what are out there right now. People are enjoying the home-based vendor use like a little mini farm stand on their property. So,
Don't they have to have, oh, they have to be food safety training required. They have to pass the,
yeah, there's things they have to do. So my proposal, as you can see in blue, I've got a roadside stand, a display stand, platform, vehicle, trailer, or partially enclosed display shed or tent not entered by the public for the sale of neighborhood agricultural products. And then we have such as whole uncut fruits and vegetables and mushrooms grown as produce of agricultural. Wild mushrooms must be certified. Flowers, unprocessed nuts and legumes and eggs, and or other agricultural related products that include and including permitted home-based vendor items for human consumption. I put human because pet-made foods are regulated by a different office, so I'm not including that. Items that are produced on the premises and sold directly to the end consumer, which stand shall be located so as to permit customers to drive completely off of the highway while dealing. And then I added, but not more than 100 feet from the edge of the side of the road. That language is actually from this, what I've got, Government Exhibit A, Home-Based Vendor Handbook. I was very happy to hear that was actually in there, some kind of regulation to guide us. They really didn't want the public to be too far into the property as kind of a public safety issue. So it forces the person that's operating one of these little roadside stands on their home property to have it relatively close to the road for a public safety issue. And then I put permitted home-based vendor, and then I went ahead and put the HBV in parentheses. Items are regulated under, and I put the Indiana Code in as amended, and under the guidance of the Indiana Department of Health Division of Food Protection, Indiana Home-Based Vendor Handbook. Examples of HBVs are most cakes, cookies, donuts, pies, breads, chips, crackers, popcorn, jams, jellies, candies, chocolate spreads, egg, noodles, roasted coffee, whole or ground, granola, nut butters, trail mixes, herbs, spices, dried teas. These are examples. And then honey, molasses, sorghum, and maple syrup. I moved the language you see that I marked out and moved it up into the body of it for better clarity. So this would be something a bit different. In the past, if someone wanted to have a little stand and sell their cookies or donuts, they would actually have to petition the Board of Zoning Appeals for a variance of use to have like a bakery or a little mini candy shop. My thinking is that that might be too heavy-handed for some of our people out there when it's just a home-based vendor item that they're allowed to make in their home. And then the government's saying, well, you have to do all this now just to sell a few donuts or cakes or whatever. These two examples I provided for you are actually ones that they have customers and they have a limited amount, and you drop your money in the box and it's the honor system, and you pick up your cookie for the day and you go on your way. I have not received any complaints about these two. There's probably a few others out there. I don't believe we have a lot of them. I don't think it's super common in our county, unless all of you know better. You may know of a few. But an actual bakery itself is actually very regulated. It's regulated by the states, regulated by the health department. It's a different level of use, in my opinion. Having one of these little stands that the public's not walking inside of, and I'm bringing that up because then the state does get involved. Then you've got something, a big deal. They would have to have a construction designer at least for a little tiny shed. Yeah, even a tent. So that's why it's worded the way it is, that they're not entering. They could have a platform, they could have a shelf stand like you see these two ladies did. I just think it would provide more freedom for people to earn additional income. These are, sometimes these are stay-at-home moms, they're homeschooling, and they're teaching their children about commerce and how to run a little business, and so it's been all around a positive thing based on some comments I'm seeing with these. I said, I haven't received any complaints about them.
One minor note here, you need in your 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth sentence from the top of 251, in your blue highlight, you need a comma after legumes.
Nuts and legumes and eggs.
As you're calling eggs unprocessed. In the strikeout below, they had a comma after legumes there to separate that into eggs.
Thank you. Any thoughts about this idea?
No, I like it.
You like it?
And it helps the kids who want to have their lemonade stand and cookies and donuts.
Hey, it's funny, I thought, it actually crossed my mind, it's almost an adult version of a lemonade stand.
That's how I interpreted it.
But,
Any additional comments?
I have.
265 setback, comma front. Couple additions.
yeah, some clarity to the wording, it certainly just says open porches, open-sided, and that makes it very clear that it could have a roof over it. It's an open-sided or open-sided lean-tos. A lot of our farmers call an addition where it's like a slanted roof, but it's open-sided. It's attached. In zoning, we ignore that open aspect and go to the main body of the structure on that side. The only time it might get a little dicey if it truly is getting very close to a property line. I think there's some guidance that we may be looking at here.
I would recommend that, since, I don't know, I would say a lot of our roads don't have don't have a straight line. And I think we've dealt with this many, many, many times before. Maybe we could do a search in the document, in any place that says street line, make it consistent and say center of the roadway or something like that. When out where I live, there are no street lines anywhere. I know. And so I always, when I read that,
Yeah, this is the old.
find the street line.
That's a good point. What you see there, distance from the center line of the right-of-way.
I think we
To
have some
the-
consistent language
Yeah.
in the parts
Yeah.
of and I think it would be a good idea to look for street line and maybe figure out what we've done in the past.
Yeah, that's an old fashioned term that's left over from when the ordinance was created many years ago. Nearest the street line it's not real clear what that is. It's possible it's defined, but I confess I don't recall ever seeing it.
Well, you're extruding a porch in the basement.
Yeah, I'm
And a lot of people working off that porch. They have a shed there stored, but they're actually doing business on that porch. Should it say footprint of the structure?
I'm not quite following you.
Well, it says open sided porches or open-ended lean-tos, but they're doing their business off that porch or that underneath that lean-to, not necessarily the building itself.
Now, this one is not related to the roadside stand.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but yet, if it's a structure, if I want to build a 20-foot porch on the front of my house, 20-foot wide porch on the front of my house, I could do it here.
Oh, you're talking about something that would be unusually large, unusually deep.
Unusually large. And it, you know,
Yeah, the deepest I think I've seen is maybe 8 feet, possibly a 10 in there somewhere. They have gotten deeper. People have discovered the 6 feet is not very deep. So 8's become more the standard lately. So you would like to have some kind of exception in there? Something to limit it?
well, I can see where it could get to be a problem some places. That's put a 6-foot porch or lean-to.
What if you,
Put a basement on it. 6 foot.
as Laura said, most porches that are being added or built new with new construction are probably 8 foot deep, 7 to 8 foot.
Yeah, a little bit more like 8 feet.
8 foot would be all right, I mean, but I think it needs to be distinct, you know, spelled out there that if you had a 2-story house, you wanted to lean-to, or if you can make that lean-to pretty doggone wide, especially if you're up underneath the roof of a 2-story house. Add 8 foot width for decks. Yeah, just a couple more words. Suggestions. We'll make this thing all to pieces anyways.
I don't know. I don't think that's really necessary. I don't think that's a huge problem.
Because they have to be so far back from the road anyway.
The setback line, you know,
Right.
the structure. So
Yeah.
I don't see anybody building a 20-foot lean-to that's gonna,
Go out to the front of the road.
The only question would be barn dominiums are becoming very popular, and they're making bigger and bigger lean-tos on them because
You know, there's one other thing you should think about, or you might want to think about, is that the width of the porch, that's going to kind of be determined by the pitch of the roof. I mean, you got to have 6'8" for an excellent porch, 6 feet 8 inches. So if you got a 412 pitch, well, that's only going to let you go so far.
yeah, unless you crawl under it.
Yeah, but the building codes won't let you crawl under it. Nobody. That's what I used to run into remodeling houses. You know, they want to go out so far. I said, well, you don't, I can't get enough fault on that roof. I mean, I got too much fault on that roof. I mean, fault on the roof will interrupt that.
Yeah, that's where Gary's saying you almost have to have a 2-story house. If you
Yeah, unless
really-
it's an Annabella mansion where, got 2 floors and the roof of the porch goes up to the top of the roof.
Well, it depends if you get a pitched roof versus a shed roof.
Barn dominium
Oh, what?
is there on 38.
Gable roof line instead of a shed roof. Shed roof, you don't need as much height on the house end.
Lean-to on the side is big enough.
Well, yeah, you're right about that.
If that was
It's on the side.
Without any closer to the property line,
But most gables,
they wouldn't include that.
right on the front of the
You
house.
see what I'm saying? And that wouldn't be included, right?
Right.
So you can put that as far as you want to the property.
Has this
line,
been
right?
an issue come up that prompted the clarification suggestion?
Well, the only thing that's in there is front yard setback, I believe it's front yard setback, how measured. Setback. Okay, setback, front setback, the distance from the center line of the right-of-way to the front wall or that part of the structure nearest the street line, not including steps or open porches, measured at right angles from the street line with the exception of the primary structure on the irregular shaped parcel, which is not parallel to the road, but which creates natural front, side, and rear yard areas near the diagram. And then we go down to rear, setback, rear, setback, side. Those don't allow for the exclusion. For some reason, the zoning ordinance doesn't address that. So, it just talks about, let's see, rear setback, the distance from the rear lot line of the nearest part of the structure measured from the rear lot line.
Okay.
And what has happened in practice is when someone had an open porch or an open covered porch, but no sides, open-sided porch, we would ignore that and go to the building itself, whether obviously on the front, but also on the sides and the rear, to be fair to people. It didn't make sense to allow that exception on the front of the building, but not on the side or the rear of the building. I would
So you're
like
just adding this
I would
now,
like to
but-
see this changed so that it's there.
That sounds reasonable. What if there's if I'm getting things straight in my head here, what if there was a description up to 8 feet in depth? A porch that is 8 feet or less from the house in depth falls into the exclusion. Anything that's greater than 8 feet, then.
Well, I think, like what Brad just said too, is when I'm clearly thinking about, like on 38, the barn dominium, where they have it's wide enough that they can put their camper underneath. Well, if that was any closer to the property line, you would not include that, correct?
Right.
And do you really want to do that?
I mean, you technically could have that right on the property line.
Exactly,
As long as the structure was behind the setback line.
exactly. Is that really what we want to do?
And I think it's becoming more common, like I said, that's a barndominium.
Yes, exactly. That's the one example that I can picture, and I am a visual person.
But I think if we're going to do it, I think 8 foot's too small, because I think people they build these to park their RVs in.
Okay.
So.
Or tractors or whatever.
Yeah, so I'd say 10 foot would be probably the minimum or the maximum that would allow for an RV to be put in, or a boat, or.
Well, you make your side and rear setbacks bigger
10,
than the
yeah,
front.
Yeah.
Or depth, I should say, we're going to call it. Are we making sense to you, Laura?
I think so. It's okay.
But we're talking about all sides rather than just front.
Right.
Because the sides and the back, you should be able to have more room from the property property lines.
For your setbacks.
For your setbacks, you know. And just maybe put something in there about, okay, you gotta be so far, even from that, with that structure, even though the main structure is this far, wherever you still have to be X amount of feet from your property line with your lean off or whatever you wanna call it.
Yeah, the main structure does meet the minimum setback, but the addition of an open-sided lean-to, just a roof, can't be any closer to whatever, I don't know. We deal with,
They store something in there, gasoline or fuel, catches fire, and it's 5 feet from the property line. And the other people had the same thing. It really, you know, it'd be a problem.
that's a good point. That's a good point. Things to consider,
So this probably should be revisited now.
maybe.
Any further
When are
comment?
we going to get through this whole thing?
Yeah,
Setback.
yeah, we have to.
Line 275, sign face area of.
My only question was this, with this was, would signs that are currently in place be grandfathered in, or would they have to be changed?
Grandfather.
Okay.
As you can see on page 3, it talks says this brings the definition into alignment with the sign section of the ordinance. It's just a definition.
Sounds good.
I struck out the kitchen facility section of guest house, pool house. I know that, Mrs. Scruggs is not happy with the utility aspect, I believe. One of your comments.
I just don't know why we have to get into regulating how many utility meters someone can have on their property.
It's not regulating the number of utility meters. It's helping to regulate the definition of guest house or pool house.
It's either one.
The standard is that it doesn't have a kitchen facility and it doesn't have a separate utility meter, but a kind of kitchen facility is rather common these days, and so I see that. The separate, not having a separate utility meter makes it a true accessory use to the home and not a potential second home, separate home. It's makes it, frankly, a little bit more difficult to sell someone on the idea of, yeah, we'll split the utilities. I've got the bigger house and you've got this little, we'll just figure it out. But it should be noted that any guest house, pool house that's out there that has a separate utility meter, that would be grandfathered. I would have no concern about pursuing that. I'm sure it was done in good faith and we wasn't regulated at this level that we're considering right now. So,
Any further questions? Comments?
That's good.
On to Article 3, Districts and Boundaries, Section B.
yeah, so you can see the first part is how it reads currently in the zoning ordinance. Now, if one of you can explain to me how to do this, you can read it. It says, Where a district boundary line divides a lot, which was in single ownership at the time of enactment of this ordinance, the use authorized thereon and the other district requirements applying to the least restricted portion of such lot under this ordinance shall be considered as extending to the entire lot, provided the more restricted portion, meaning the more restricted zone district, of such lot is entirely within 25 feet of said dividing district boundary line. The use so extended shall be deemed to be conforming. Now, looked at this in different ways. I've talked with Steve Higginbotham about it. It's not entirely clear to us what that means. Entirely within 25 feet of said dividing district boundary line. So that's why I came up with a proposed change. You see, it says change this to this down here, and so I marked some items out here and find some applying to the zone district that encompasses more than 50% of such lot under this ordinance shall be considered as extending to the entire lot. But if a parcel has equal parts of all zone districts involved, then the least restrictive zone district extends to the entire parcel. To me, this was more clear. If someone had a property, because we've got some really unusual properties out there because for whatever reason the zone district, the zoning map was laid out in some areas a little bit unusual. So you'll have like a 100-acre parcel and a little tiny bit of it is R1. And the rest of it is A1. I mean, they got their cattle, they're doing their things, that they've done that for years. Technically, they shouldn't have the cattle, but they're likely grandfathered. But the R1 is less restrictive than the A1. So the R1 would extend to the entire, all the acreage. Hardly seems fair to me. So that was my thinking on that, because we do have, we have a few actually that have 3 different zone districts. Those are fun. Down near Boston.
I think this is a good way to explain it.
I thought the rewrite was well done.
Yeah,
It just seems more fair.
I agree. I'm fine with it.
Let's see. And speaking of restrictive and less restrictive, under Article 4, effects of districting and general regulations. So for some of these districts, as you see in the list, we have a GB-1, GB-2. We've got some zone districts noted here that are not currently on our zone map, and I'm not sure that it ever has been, but it's there in the ordinance. So the most restrictive would be the GB1. The least restrictive would be the M3. And for whatever reason, the M3 hasn't been on the list, so my recommendation is to include it on the list so it's not left out in that hierarchy. So it's kind of bring it into compliance. I also included some additional zone districts that should have been represented even though they're physically not on the map. Better to have it there in case the map is amended in the future and it's already in the ordinance. Anybody had any questions about that part?
No questions?
Okay. Street frontage requirements. So this one is a little bit different. My proposal is to split this up a little bit. You see A, I added the wording A. It says for permitted residential use. And then the ordinance you see that's not highlighted, except as permitted by other provisions of this ordinance, no lot shall contain any building used in whole or in part for residential purposes unless such lot abuts for at least 40 feet on one side of a public street or road. And there shall be not more than one single-family dwelling for such frontage, and I added with the exception of a permitted accessory dwelling unit, ADU. I realized that wasn't in there. I thought this might give some clarity to the street frontage requirement. Having an ADU requires, in the A1, requires a minimum of 3 acres. That would allow 1.5 acres for each home with a 100-foot separation between the two, the thinking that potentially the property could be split. Currently, we require only at least 40 feet of frontage to serve those two homes. We try not to get too onerous with people on that issue, so that the thinking is they're not going to split it. That's not their desire. That's not the whole point of why they pursue an ADU. They don't want the government telling them you have to split your land in order to have another dwelling for a loved one. So the ADU, just to let you know, has become very popular. We just follow the development standards that this board recommended to the county commissioners, and we've been moving forward. So it actually has provided the additional housing that the comprehensive plan is, requiring us to do. So that's been a real plus. Now the second part under B, for permitted non-residential principal use / buildings and accessory use / buildings. This is not in the ordinance at all. Except as permitted by other provisions of this ordinance, no lot shall contain any permitted non-residential principal use building and accessory use buildings unless such lot abuts, that I put in, for at least 20 feet on one side of a public street or road. And one of your handouts, Exhibit D, this reflects part of the definition of lot in the zoning ordinance, and the International Fire Code requires a minimum of 20 feet road width for a fire truck, such as on a dead-end road, as an example. And you can see in that exhibit that I provided for you, 20 feet gives them enough clearance to turn in and get access to buildings. Now, in the definition of lot, it simply says front, I believe, fronts on the road. It does not provide a measurement. So,
I'm sorry.
the definition of lot, a parcel of land occupied or intended to be occupied by a principal building or group of such buildings and accessory buildings. And it goes on, okay, having at least the minimum area requirements for a lot in the zone in which lot is situated and having its principal frontage on a public street or road. But then under street frontage requirements, it only talks about a home. It's limited. The 40 feet is only about a home. It doesn't address, it's never told us how many feet of frontage is required for a parcel that doesn't have a home. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So,
So you just add the 20 in there for
so
non.
the 20 is just a suggestion. If you would like to regulate this, if you would like to provide a number for these parcels that don't have a home but they're eligible to be developed as long as they have frontage, 20 is my recommendation just for fire access, bare minimum.
Makes sense.
Now, people still have the right to go for variance of use to have a landlocked property. They certainly have that right if they feel like they've got a hardship.
Isn't there something, I'm going back into the 90s, because I had to deal with it. I had to have a piece of my farm ground behind my house was landlocked, basically. So when Gordon come out and we done that, I had to have 80 feet of easement right away going back to my fields in between two pieces of property.
Wow. Well, there was a section, I don't know how long that was.
But that been like 90.
Yeah, I think it was in the 90s.
Yeah.
For a period of time, I don't know if it was 10, maybe even 15 years, they changed the frontage requirement from 40, which had been 40 for a really long time, to 80. The farmers weren't happy, and so the ordinance was changed so that they went back to the 40. And we haven't had any complaints about the 40 for a home. So obviously, if you want to go for 40 for other things too, rather than 20, that's certainly something to consider. But I don't know.
I'd rather lean towards less restrictive than more restrictive myself. So.
When you say permitted or permitted not residential, so for all these non-permitted buildings, then this doesn't apply, correct?
Well, when I use that, the idea is that they're there legally. That the structures that you see on the property, that they obtain permits. Now, are there structures out there that they fail to get permits? Yes, we do come across that. We have structures that are there that have existed long before we ever had a zoning or building ordinance. We got the zoning in
I'm talking about
67.
stuff that's being built now,
Yeah.
that's not permitted.
Well, I'm happy to pursue it if you have
That's my question.
concern. Yeah.
Does it need to stay permitted?
I see what you're saying. You want to leave it out, just say,
For
Just structures.
non-residential principal use buildings? Because
yeah, I see what you're saying. You don't want to exempt them from a
and it's
requirement.
as much of a fire hazard as a permitted. You know, it's never been permitted.
That's fine. Any thoughts about getting rid of the word permitted?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Would you want it from the wording on A on page 3? It says for permitted residential use.
Yeah, take out
Just say
permitted
for residential use.
use and for non-residential principal use buildings.
All right.
And then I agree with the second sentence where it says except as permitted by other provisions, but then I wonder about the no lot shall contain any permitted non-residential principal use buildings.
Yeah, I've already marked that permitted out also.
Okay.
Yeah, I marked it out already.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Then we've got my proposals to add to the list of principal permitted uses in the A1 district, private pond, farm pond, or lake on a minimum of 3 acres. Currently, the way the ordinance reads, it would be a principal permitted use, but it'd have to be on 5 acres. I think that's a real hardship for the public. For one thing, the pond isn't even listed as a principal permitted use. We've treated it as such over the years so that, you know, if someone had the acreage, they could have a pond that they could visit and enjoy, and it would be a principal structure. Ponds are a structure under the definition of structures, but for whatever reason, it's not been listed in the A1 district as a principal permitted use. So my thinking is we might consider adding it. But just as we've got some statements about a cemetery on a minimum of 3 acres, a single one-family dwelling per minimum 1.5 acre parcel, we've got some standouts there. My thinking is I'd like to see that acreage reduced for the ponds, because under 54.79 lot area width and yard requirements, the development standards for these uses, under other permitted uses, minimum lot area is 5 acres and 275 feet of lot width. So my thinking is if you add this to the list with 3 acres, it would be 3 acres with 275 feet of lot width and 100-foot setback. So everything's the same, but the acreage would change. And,
So you're reducing the acres?
that's all that would change. It would change from 5 down to 3. It would give our citizens more freedom. I think it's too hard to have 5 acres. Some might contend that 3 is too much too, but we've got a lot of large properties out there. I don't know, and people always have the right to go over a variance. It would be very nice to reduce the number of variances that are required out there, so people don't have to go through that process every time they want to do something. So I'm seeing this happen, people wanting ponds, and they're hitting this wall.
Yeah, I do too all the time, so yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
You guys like to wait a little bit? Or?
Keep going.
Okay. Now the next section is about under same area, same section, 54.75. Principal permitted uses is the B, where we have agricultural animals. Currently, it says, and poultry, it says on tracts of 3 acres to less than 5 acres and a minimum of 275 feet of lot width. My recommendation is to consider going to animal units. And, but possibly the chart might help out. Now, what I've given you are Government Exhibit E and F, which you might find helpful. So what's happening is E, it's 2 pages. It's taken from Richmond's UDO, Unified Development Ordinance. Keeping of animal standards. They have the ag standards for animals, and they use animal units. And they look at how much pasture is available to them. And they also allow chickens, poultry, let's see, I can find it here. Yeah, they allow chickens on 1/5 or 0.20 of an acre in a residential zone district. They allow them, I believe, even in subdivisions. So I have some property owners, and that's a short list out there, and I've dealt with others over the years. You can see on Exhibit F. Those are some addresses. They're all in the A1. You can see the acreage. You've got some small acreage there. Lot width is kind of all over the place, different numbers of animals. So currently, those 4 properties are all in violation under our current zoning ordinance. So I talked with a lady recently about her chickens, and she, I believe, only has 5 on this small property, and she homeschools. The chickens are part of their diet, the eggs, and the kids are learning how to care for animals, and it's in the backyard and everything like that. And suddenly the government's getting heavy-handed. Well, and she's like, well, Richmond lets them do it. And I'm thinking, I've heard this before. And it just, in my opinion, seems a little unusual that the people in Richmond on these small lots actually have more freedom to have chickens in particular, but a few others, but than our citizens out in the countryside. It just seems a little unusual.
Yeah, if you have an acre, why couldn't you have 5 chickens?
Right, exactly. So I know it's a change, but just having dealt with customers, chickens are becoming extremely popular out
The
there.
egg prices really.
The egg prices really brought it
I just get
on.
my own chickens, so.
Yep, that's what's happened is people have said, you know what, I'm going to look into it. They educate themselves, they get their coop, they get their chickens, and they go on their merry way. They typically don't have, a lot. 10 chickens, that's kind of the max overall. The one on 100 Main Street, Garden City, if you've driven by it, you couldn't help but notice it's grown. So that one, well, even if this was a mint, it would probably be a problem. They probably easily have maybe 40 between chickens and turkeys on a property. But, And to be fair, though, we haven't received complaints about this operation.
When I was growing up, almost everybody had chickens, except us. Dad said he said chickens, he could buy them cheaper than he could raise them. But the thing of it is, they were always confined to a small lot. And you didn't have to have acres, you had maybe a quarter of an acre. And they would have 50 or 60 hens. And it'd be like a quarter of an acre, and they never left that. That was all fenced in, and you could have a lot. Now, in a residential area, you wouldn't want every residential lot to have or have 50 chickens. But if you've got, if you're out where there's just miles around you, that's the number of chickens really doesn't make any difference. How many you have? I mean, like where I live, it's a long way between houses.
Yeah. So it's something different. I've got a chart. I've got an example of what that might look like for each of these ways of going about it.
But
I don't know. It's just something I would like this board to consider, that maybe we should allow people a bit more freedom with their ag animals and chickens.
I think
it has 3 chickens per lot on page 2 of the Richmond. And they only have 3 chickens per lot. And that would be what?
Maximum.
1/5 of an acre?
Yeah, I have to have at least 1/5 of an acre, but they're only allowed to have 3 chickens. Now that's the way Richmond did it.
But they don't have any roosters. That's another big thing.
Yeah, so
They don't
the
have
section you're looking at is the residential district area.
Correct.
At this moment, I was gonna bring it up, and whether or not you would like to even consider having just chickens, no other animals, no other ag animals. But just allow people to have chickens in, say, Williamsburg as an example. Your little R district, unincorporated towns, that's typically where a lot of the R districts are.
I don't want,
They're
I
probably,
like the idea.
they're possibly
3
out there
chickens.
anyway.
3 chickens per lot, per quarter of an acre. I don't have a problem with that. Is it a quarter? It's a fifth
It's a
of an acre.
fifth, which is point two.
It's
It's
like a
actually
city
less than a
lot.
quarter.
Right.
That's a city lot, isn't it? A 1/5 of an acre.
A little bit bigger.
So you're saying they could have 15 if they had an acre?
It's what?
You could have 15 chickens if you had an acre.
Well, they limit, in Richmond, they limit you to only 3 chickens per lot.
3 chickens and no roosters. And the chicken coop has to be in the rear.
Yeah, that's town, though. I mean,
That's all
in
about
town.
Richmond, yeah. If you like the Richmond stuff, then you can pursue that. I didn't pursue it. On page 5 at the top, I've got the poultry, turkey, pheasant, similar unless prohibited by multiple lot subdivision covenants. I wanted to throw that in there. Or restrictions shall be permitted based on the following chart. And then we've got option 1, a parcel with a minimum of 0.2 of an acre to less than 3 acres and a minimum of 250-foot lot width. And perhaps not even worry about the lot width. I thought about that too. But a maximum of 5 chickens on that small parcel. And then option 2, a parcel with 3 acres to less than 5 and a minimum of 275 feet of lot width. You can have 20 chickens, poultry of some sort. So I'm leaning towards on option one, not even talking about the lot width. If you've got just 5 chickens in a small property, I can see someone having one of these older lots that's, 100 and, well, I guess we can go back to that one sheet. For instance, Tingler Road. They've got 5 chickens, and it's 100 feet wide, and it's only .46.
Yeah, I think, I would get away with the.
Just get rid of the lot width.
Just the lot
I think
size
that-
is.
I think the lot size would be enough. The fact that it's .2 to less than 3, that's quite a bit of freedom. And if they wanted to have more than 5 chickens, they could go for that. But any thoughts about getting rid of the lot width for option one?
You know what, the important thing here is not what we can regulate, but it's actually population density. I mean, you can't have a lot of chickens where you got a lot of people. But, the amount of chickens you have on any piece of ground really is irrelevant to, the property itself or the health of the chickens. I mean, if you can manage the health, because like I said, a lot of people, they would have a lot of chickens in a small area. Of course, my grandfather had, they said he had 20,000 chickens in a farm, one building. He raised a lot of chickens. But I mean, just ordinary people, they either have, they would have the chicken pen, or they would have, they just run loose in the barn. I mean, they run in and out of the barn, they just run loose. And an awful lot of people had chickens that weren't fenced, they weren't controlled, and, gathering eggs was an Easter egg hunt. I mean, you crawl around, between bales and stuff, and try to find those nests, and you find the nest, and maybe they had 4 eggs in them, or you might find one with 15 or 20 eggs in it, or even more, and you'd have to find out, which ones were spoiled and which ones weren't. But chickens are part of rural life. They just really are.
Yeah, I say on option one, eliminate the 250 feet. Since you have a .2 acre lot, I don't make it less.
We're okay with that? Any thoughts? Okay. I think five chickens is okay for a max on that size?
I think if they wanted more than that, they should be able to request a variance.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you can always get a variance.
Request a variance for anything in the ordinance.
Right, yeah. But, if it's reasonable, they should be able to have more chickens if they want.
Okay. Then option 2, we're back to the kind of the standard of that 3 acre to less than 5 acre and a minimum of 275 feet of lot width. And that I've got it at 20, which I lean more towards the Richmond idea on that one. And, as you can see on the first page there on the Richmond UDO, it has chicken, turkey, pheasant, similar. Animals per animal unit says 20. And so I thought maybe that would be a good idea. And I showed some examples for option 2. You could have a 4.5 acre property with 275 feet of lot width and 4 acres of fenced pasture. It would be eligible to have 20 poultry or 1 cow, 1 horse, and up to 20 poultry, or 1 donkey, 5 goats, and up to 20 poultry. And then, as you can see, I've got a double asterisk there, up there in the box. And down there, a little bit, almost middle of the page, you'll see in blue, poultry under option 2 are permitted in addition to the permitted agricultural animals per unit as regulated under section 54.75B. You don't have that pasture aspect involved with the chickens like you would, under just agricultural animals on page 4. But I think this will give more freedom. Currently, they've got a limitation. You can only have, let me tell you, a maximum, currently if you have 3 acres, nothing under 3 at all, but if you have, this proposal, you could have chickens at least under 3 acres. But if you have 3 acres to less than 5, currently you can only have 2 agricultural animals, like 1 horse, 1 goat, you're done. Or you could have up to 20 poultry, or you could have 10 poultry and 1 agricultural animal. So you could have your 10 chickens and you could have your 1 little pony. And that's all currently our zoning ordinance allows. So this is actually more freedom for the citizens to have more agricultural animals out in a rural setting, which I think is good, in my opinion. And I think we'll have fewer variance requests if this goes through. Fewer
I think
needs.
this allows too for those families that want to be, just say 4-H.
Yeah,
They don't want to
4-H.
be farmers, but they want to have a couple goats so their kids can show the goats, or a pig, and they have 3 acres, right?
Right. And I hear from a lot. I live in the country. I've got an acre. I've got 2 acres, 3 acres. Why am I running into this issue? And once again, I often hear we have more freedom in Richmond. So.
There's another thing to consider here. You talk about 3 acres. I mean, that's 3 acres for the total lot. Now you got to subtract the house from that and the yard.
And that is true.
And you're talking about how many acres per animal. I mean, how many animals per acre of pasture, not.
Well, and that is important. I wanted to emphasize
This,
that. It
yeah,
talks
you have-
about pasture. That's what Richmond did. And it's got 1 animal unit per 2 acres of fenced pasture area. So, I mean, they've got to allow enough land for these animals. So, there's that.
Well, that's because of the waste, manure of the animals, not the pasture.
Well, you've got different.
You've got to have enough room so that it's not getting to the neighbors,
Move around.
causing any
So,
And you can bring in feed, which is the
hay.
yeah, they probably
Bring in hay,
these.
grain.
Yeah, they're
It's the-
likely bringing it in. So,
When it's dry like this and you have a calf on a quarter of an acre, it gets a little smell.
any thoughts? How you feel about this?
I'm okay with it.
One strong opinion.
I'm just looking at this 4.5 acres property, 4 acres fenced lot. I've got 5.2 acres parcel, got my house, garage, barn, and all that stuff on it. I'd hate to think if I was in the business of horses that I couldn't have but 1 horse on that lot. Because chances are half the time, or maybe more than that, it's going to be in a stall, a horse in. So I think there's circumstances where you talk about in a pasture, but yeah, a lot of times that horse is going to be in a stall.
Well, what is everyone's thoughts on the pasture aspect? I mean, do you want to regulate that aspect? Do you just want to focus on total acreage?
I mean, if you're dealing with a lot that's under 5 acres, you're never going to have enough pasture without supplemental feeding. And so, apart from Teresa's comment about the smell, you can get by with higher concentration of larger animals without having a huge amount of fenced area.
With horses, it's a little different than cattle. But I knew people that would have, I had one friend of my folks they didn't have 5 acres. They had a horse barn, they had 3 horses. But, you know, they had a place to walk out and that kind of thing, but they didn't have any pasture at all. They were pretty much dependent on feed. And as far as the smell goes, I don't remember. Of course,
Horses on that.
you're kind of used to it. But, you know, they just cleaned out the stalls. And another thing, you know,
Well, when you clean
They're
out
all-
a stall, you gotta put it someplace.
yeah,
They put it in the
but you
trash
can
can?
haul it off.
Okay.
Well, most of them now, what I see, these people out in the country around me, they have horses out of rent, or they got larger places than what we're talking about. It's still, with the horses out as a concentrated area, and their horse farms, they've actually have a pit. It's not a pit like for a hog or a chicken, but it's a compound or compost type thing. They have, it's all concrete and it's 3-sided. They take that out there, they put it in there. You actually see them blending in some straw and things like that. And, you know, again, we're in the country, I don't smell when I drive by and all this stuff, but that's pretty cool what they do. That they go out and I've seen people go in there with pickup trucks and take some of that manure for the gardens and things like that. So to me, they're using it's a smart way of doing that kind of thing. And if someone had like a small partial that would do things like that, that's one thing. But if somebody just takes it out and just spreads it, and, you know, around their yard and that kind of stuff, that's a different story. But I think, again, like you were talking about, it just depends how they would regulate doing that with their animals. If they had 2 or 3 horses and they just want, you know, it's a pleasure riding, they went out and rode on weekends, or it might be purebred breedings, you know, where they just bring them in, breed them, and then just kind of like the dog and kitty type thing, where they just sire and send them out. But yeah, there's some elaborate things that go on out there that people do.
Horses are different than cows.
Oh, yeah.
As far as, you know, because the older, and it's just like the manure.
Yeah.
You can spread the manure on a garden and fine.
Yeah.
You do that with fresh cow manure, you're going to burn it up.
Well,
until you let it-
chicken's the worst.
If you don't let it.
Yeah, hog chicken, or
Yeah.
chicken hog, then
Oh,
cow.
chickens are really
Oh,
bad.
chicken,
Yeah.
horse, yeah.
They're all about that.
A lot of ammonia in that.
This year.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is.
Yeah, it's ammonia.
But I just brought it up because I'm sure that people want to have maybe 3 acres.
Well, and you can always ask for a variance. So I think
Yeah,
this is,
yeah.
we're being less restrictive, but we're still going to have some guidelines. Because people, if you don't have reasonable restrictions on 3 acres or 5 acres they'll have 10 cows on it.
Yeah.
That's
You
the
have
reason
to
I
feed
brought it
them,
up,
that's what
so
you're
you know,
Yeah.
be sure that everybody understands you can go for a variance on that for
Yeah.
something different, but I do know on my property, I would hate to be limited to 1 cow or 1 horse.
That's all you need.
I've got probably 4.5 acres that I could pasture in a fence. But that seems like an awful lot of ground for that, especially if you had it in the barn and stalls part of the time too.
Especially with horses, but I think
Yeah.
Well, you know, if you drive around these old towns or small towns, you'll find houses real close together, and there's a horse barn out back, and it's just a city lot because that's how they traveled. They didn't even have a buggy in. I don't know what they did, but they had to get rid of that somewhere.
That's what the alley was for. You pulled in, but you didn't back that buggy out. You went out the other side with that horse and buggy.
Yeah.
That's why they had all the alleys in these towns. So, but yeah, they was all in a small barn.
They were just, you know, it was,
They didn't get, the only time they got out was when you took them out and drive them, so. Yeah.
But to Brad's point, you know, just if we have some type of regulation on the smaller lots, then they have a need, they want to bring it before the board for variance, then that opportunity's there.
Okay, that's good. I'll include this, clean up a little bit, I'll get rid of that, the phrase "and a minimum of 250 feet of lot width for option 1 on the poultry." Let's see, and also I'll be including the words multiple lot subdivision. may clean that up a little bit, but I don't want it being prohibited once again on a single lot subdivision. I don't want to worry about that. But I don't want to, our ordinance to go against the covenants or restrictions in a subdivision automatically, you know. On page 5, accessory uses, that's still in the A1 district, last item for that section. I propose adding accessory dwelling unit ADU is regulated by section 54.25 definitions, dwelling unit, comma, accessory or ADU. Just thought it would be a good idea to put it there. Currently, accessory dwelling unit is found only in the definitions, so I think it would be a good idea to have it represented. And I believe I have it come up again. Yes, I have it under, in the next page, 6, you'll see it as a suggestion to add to accessory uses under RS, one family suburban residence district. And see, once that's added to those two key ones, the A1 and the RS, then the A2 piggybacks on the A1, and all the other zone districts after RS piggyback all the way back to that one. So it's honored, doesn't need to be added all the way through the ordinance. Back to page 5. Let's see, add in the A2, this one, A2s are handled differently a little bit. I think I've got the piggyback on that one. Let me take a look.
Can you give me some section numbers, please?
Okay, under A2 agricultural big lot districts, section 54.90.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Let's see. Yeah, the only piggyback under that section is referencing agricultural uses. It has some other statements, but nothing else. So my recommendation is to add the private pond, farm pond or lake, as regulated in the A1 district. Note a pond or lake that is one, and I wanted to add that in there, that these notes note a pond or lake that is 1 acre or more in size is subject to the Indiana Department of Environmental Management requirements under the Construction Stormwater General Permit, and a dam may be subject to the approval and requirements of the Indiana Department of Natural Resources. I believe I have that, yes. So on page 4, that same statement. I didn't read it out earlier, but A1 with the pond, I've got that note in there. And then you have the, back to page 5 at the very bottom, amend section 54.94, lot area width and yard requirements. That section you see there says, the following minimum requirements shall apply except as provided in, let's see to get this. The reference to section 54.406, which has a strike through, is not applicable. It should not have been added originally. I can read it to you. Okay, so here we are talking about lot area, frontage, and yard requirements. It says, except as provided in section 54.375. And that says dwellings on any lot of record, which gives guidance. And then it goes on some other things about height limitations, minimum requirements, yard modifications, which is fine. But then you hit 406, which is fences, walks, and hedges. that's not the subject that's involved with lot area frontage. It's just, that's a unique set-aside section. It's kind of a housekeeping thing to get that out of there. And then it would be 405, which is projection of architectural features, and 407, which is yard requirements along the zoning boundary lines in the less restricted district. So, and you're going to see a lot of that cleaning up. Let me see. Yeah. So 5, we go to page 6. My recommendation is to have a single one-family dwelling on a septic system per minimum 1 acre parcel. Now, as we've talked before, I do have a recommendation to consider that perhaps in the R districts, that should be changed. The minimum acreage should be changed to 1.5 in the R districts rather than, because currently every property in the R district that is a home on a septic system is required to have a minimum 1 acre. And that's actually in your last one. I think, maybe not. All right, you can get to you. It's labeled.
Which one?
G, yes, thank you. So that was, Dan Bird provided that information last year. And that he would certainly agree that that would be a good idea because it would provide citizens going forward. Obviously, all the ones that are 1 acre or less, and we have a lot of those, are grandfathered. But going forward, as people split up land in an R district, currently, legally, they could split off the bare minimum, 1 acre minimum width, typically like 65. Very small properties, very small. Now, they may hit the hardship wall very quickly by not being able to get a septic system in on such a small property, and that could happen, or they could get one in. The problem may be is that it's ideal if you have another location also approved in advance. That's why they do, I believe, at least 3 soil tests to see if you could put another system in someplace else. So if one system goes into complete failure, you have some other location for your system on your personal property. We don't want a bunch of abandoned homes because they...
I thought minimum lot size for a residential in an R, was an acre and a half already.
No.
That's an A1.
It used to be an acre and a half.
No,
Never
it's
was.
just 1 acre.
Oh, I thought we changed that to, I'll tell you about the 25 years ago or 20 years ago, the year I started doing this, we discussed this
Lot size.
septic system problems. And at that time, you had to have enough, they wanted enough area for 2 different septic sites, so you could do it twice. And then it was kind of decided, well, if you've got, there's enough space in between fingers that if those fingers load up and then it becomes, unusable, you can just put another finger in between each one of those fingers.
I don't know what the standards are now.
It's not like that now.
I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I can't remember.
I agree with you because back in 90 when I did my lots and stuff, I said right over there and it had to be an acre and a half.
In our district?
It was
How I spoke to you was
That's
me
not what
and
we
Gordon
have
said
right
over
now in the
there.
ordinance.
I come in and we did when I had to do all that for me years ago. Back it was like 1990, 91, something like that. But it was everything. Mine had to be an acre and a half.
Yeah.
We had just the same thing because the time they put a well out there, we put a well. The well had to be so far away from your septic. And like you said, we had to take 3 or 4 soil samples.
It's tight on 1 acre.
Yeah.
It's really tight to get a well and
Because
septic.
you put a 1,800 square foot home, put it, let's say, somewhere,
Back then they
ain't gonna be much ground.
they were also debating the 5 acre law. Where you had to have 5 acres before you could move in. And I thought we ended up with an acre and a half.
Well, I'm just saying that's what I had to do.
Yeah. Maybe it changes.
It's not an A1.
I believe I'm right there on Whitewater Road.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure because you guys give me a pretty hard time.
It's been 1 acre.
I remember that.
1.5 is the standard for the A1 agricultural. Most of the countryside in our county is A1 agricultural. And the minimum requirement is 1.5 acres in the A1. We have a lot of A1 in the Whitewater area. The town of Whitewater's not ours, though.
No, I just lived, busted that about a mile and a half.
That would be A1.
Yeah, that's A1.
Yeah, Yeah.
That's all A1, there's no residential.
yeah, it's A1. That's why you got the 1.5 acre issue. If you're going to split land, you needed at least 1.5 and 250 feet of lot width. But anyway, that's the recommendation. I personally agree with the recommendation of making it so that all our district properties, if they're split, if it's a new split, they have to meet a new standard of 1.5 acres. Just like we have that for a new split minimum in the A1. Because the whole thinking behind that originally was all about the septic anyway, so it's really rather odd that R1 doesn't have that same standard. And they're already having issues, sadly, out in our small towns and the R district towns with septic issues.
So you're saying that just in the R district, for a split, you have to have 1.5 acres?
That's my recommendation.
In that way, because that would take care of any septic
It would
if they
help.
want to build.
Yeah, it's not a guarantee. It isn't a guarantee, frankly, in the A1 either.
Okay. That's good.
And people know that. Now, having said that, I'm talking about acreage here. Lot width is another matter, and so that isn't in here. So it's something to consider, just how much lot width. For instance, lot width for like a one-story home on a septic is 65 feet wide, 75 feet wide for 2.5 story on a septic, and 100 feet wide for other principal permitted uses. So I'm just giving you widths there. That was for R1, RS. Let's see, RS is a little different. You've got 100 feet for septic. These are all widths. Got 100 feet for minimum widths. So I don't know. These are smaller properties. That's the thinking behind it. I don't know if you'd want to go with a 100-foot minimum width for an R1, like a 1.5 acre, 100 feet wide. That's a possibility, but I don't know. You could go with something wider than that. My initial concern is the acreage issue, but clearly there's other things at play. Is there any consensus on the possibility of going to 1.5? Do you feel like this might be something you'd like to see in the proposed amendments for our districts?
See what he said.
Say it again.
Get him out of retirement?
Well, I'm trying to remember. I mean, I thought there was something about like the number, of residents you have in a home. And you were talking about the
septic
feet.
systems are sized based on the number of bedrooms you have. It's occupancy load on the property. You can have as many bathrooms as you want. They don't care about that. They care about how many bedrooms you have, because that means how many people are likely living there. I don't know what that standard is. There's probably how many people can be in each bedroom. There's probably a calculation they made a long time ago.
Marshall talking about. So you keep talking about feet. That's what my question was. I mean, you're talking about lot width.
Yeah, how many feet would it be? How wide would it be? How many feet wide?
Right.
Yeah.
But if it's got 10 bedrooms in it, is that going to be big enough?
Personally, I think if it's going to go to 1.5 acres, I don't think a 65-foot wide lot in 1 acre is going to be kind of an odd little property. I'll put it that way.
I know I had to come in when I did that, I had to say how many bedrooms on my lot. And then, of course, then they told me how big my
Septic system had to be, and is a leach system, is a pump station, and all that good stuff. And I got by with like 1,500, 1,600 square foot leach bed. So, you start figuring that out there. I know in my backyard, that takes up pretty much my whole backyard is my leach system. So when you go to, and let's say you make a bigger house, you go 10, but you're just gonna make that leach bed get bigger. It's gonna be 2,000, 2,500 square feet of ground.
That's lineal foot of figure system.
Yeah.
Yeah, not square foot of lots.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, the more bedrooms, the bigger the system, the more land you need. So we have run into situations where the soils, they had plenty of land, but the soils were so poor they couldn't have the size home they wanted. They couldn't have the number of bedrooms they wanted. The soils could only support like a 2 or 3 bedroom. They wanted a 5. So sometimes you can have lots of land, but the soils are bad. You may have good soil, but you don't have enough of it to put the size in. So there are limitations that just exist for everybody pursuing a home on a property. Now I could reach out to Dan Burke if you're open to that and ask him what his thoughts are. Let him know what these widths are that we're dealing with.
I think that's a good idea.
You got your
Septic's
minimum
really
65. We got our max at 100. And he might, and currently the 1.5 we've got in the country is 250 feet wide. Of course, the other side of that, you've got septic systems in these small lots in these towns. They're very close to each other. I don't know where the wells are. Just saying, there's some minimum distances that are currently required. Don't know what it was years ago. Maybe we didn't have that sort of thing available to people. But there's some health standards we want to encourage out there. I'm sure Dan would agree with that. And so having a widened property would give you those setbacks from someone's septic on one property to someone's well on another property. That's that reasoning behind lot widths.
And then it's funny you bring it up because there's a lot of regulations on HUDs that talks about the well distance from the septic on that parcel.
Oh, on that parcel.
But then concerned about the septic on your neighbors.
Neighbor's septic's on top of your well.
Yeah, but it's got to be 100 feet from.
From your well, but not his.
But then talk about the neighbors.
So you'll get back with us on that?
Yeah, I think that would be good. But you're open to the 1.5 acre for future splits in the R districts? Okay. I'll make a note right now. Sounds good.
Laura, do you wish to keep plowing through on this tonight?
It's up to you. We're getting a little late here. It's after 8, guys. Some of this is just housekeeping stuff, just cleaning it up. So there's consistency in the ordinance. I can tell you that. On really the rest of page 6 is just housekeeping stuff. Cleaning up that 406, getting rid of that and tidying that up. Truck wash. What we had going on. Prohibited uses. In the C3, you're not allowed to have a home, a dwelling, a mobile home park. But yeah, it didn't say it, so I wanted to include it. Just a thought. It was kind of odd. Some more housekeeping. Added the salvage yard to section 54.218. This is the light industrial district, and that matches up to the listing. Actually, junkyard and salvage yard are together under definitions.
There are no other questions. Can we skip to, I just have a question on the section 54.271. I assume that all of this would be grandfathered.
Bob, on page 7.
What'd you say?
54.271.
Advertising, signage or signs.
Oh, yeah. That's a standard practice in zoning. Any use that's currently legal and the use, some aspect of it, development standards change, different requirements are required. Anything that's still there can remain, it's grandfathered. that's standard. Grandfathering is always standard, and they're allowed to maintain it.
The
No.
other question I had is, okay, the area sign facing, if you've got A1 district, and you say, I'm gonna go to the last sentence where it talks about height being 25 and the max width is 60. And then number 2, for commercial and industrial zone districts, again, it's 25 and 60. And then when we get down here to the interstate, it's 25 and 50. Is that because of the federal? Or why are we changing it from, because 2560, 2560, and then 25, 2050? It just seems like it would be a headache depending, okay, well, I'm in A, so it's 60, I'm in commercial and industrial, so it's 60, and then I go into this other one and it's 50.
It's 50. Well, it is what our current zoning ordinance says. I can double check to see if that is also NDOT standards.
Okay, that's what,
I have no problem with that.
Regulated by,
NDOT standards are what I'm going for, so if I've missed it, then we'll get that fixed. I will just double check it.
but I just thought for consistency purposes, do we make them
Yeah.
all the same? 25 and 50, or should we, you know, I don't mind, but let's just keep it consistent.
Well,
Would be a good suggestion.
I hear you, but 50 might be NDOT standards in the industrial
Right,
district, so
then
I
we
don't.
change the other 2 to 50.
Well, commercial, industrial, those are often adjacent to interstate and federal. Once again, that is a state-regulated sign, so anything that is adjacent to an interstate or federal aid primary system, road system, first has to get a permit from NDOT before they get a permit from me. So I don't want our zoning ordinance to be less restrictive. To cause, yeah, just because of NDOT, I don't want to cause anything that, so that, I want us to be in agreement, is what I'm trying to say. Sorry, a little bit tired.
Okay.
But I'd be happy to check on it. I see what you mean. I mean, it is different. It's been a bit since I've typed some parts of this up.
And the next question I have is, the minimum site area for a neighborhood commercial unit development project shall be 5 acres. And I asked.
Where are you at?
It's 54.315. Right.
One right below it.
Oh, okay.
Article number 9.
Yes. What is a commercial unit development project?
Well, I assume that's a concentration of individual businesses in things like a strip mall or office park or something like that. That'd be how I interpret that. Agree, Brad?
yeah, I would say that's what that is.
See if I can remove this. No, that whole section that's about unit development projects. Section 315, 316, and 317. What I found is that it was inconsistent in its wording. It wasn't consistent throughout.
So you're adding the word development one place, a unit the next place.
Right, it was just, the whole thing was just inconsistent. So it's like, no, you don't say it this way, you stay consistent within your section. And so it's cleaning it up, is what that's all about.
It's not changing anything.
No, I'm not changing the
Make the
definition
nomenclature
at all.
consistent.
that in your definitions? Did you define that,
But
Dan,
let me
when
see
you
if we've
were
got a definition
going
for
through?
that.
Is that in your definitions? I should have went back and looked at my
Commercial unit.
book.
How long ago that's been?
Why have you forgotten?
Slap fence in.
One five.
So that would be my question. We just need to make sure those are definitions. Right?
Yeah, under, was that Article 13, I believe, unit development projects. It's made by, the county commissioners may by ordinance establish a development plan or planned unit development for a described tract of real estate. Then we have our procedures for it. There's actually one out there just adjacent to Garden City. They had planned a residential one. It was going to be like single-story patio homes, retirement community, but the economy kind of went south, and so they weren't able to pursue it. So we do have an overlay district there. I believe it's like an A-1, CP, maybe not CP. At any rate, so you're wanting a definition for that?
It would just be nice to have one in the definition.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and I didn't find it in our ordinance. There's
Just make a note to add that.
commercial, residential community. I think if we had, perhaps it's under unit development. But, yeah, I can, you can check it out. Because all they say is a commercial unit development project may be established provided the tract of land is located in any commercial zone district. I'll check on it, see if we can get some clarity. Maybe I'll locate it. I've never taken part in that process. Mr. Higginbotham did, Steve Higginbotham did. Definition for each of these. So that would be commercial, residential, community. Oh, and industrial. There's also some other single district overlay multiple. Okay, definitions, question mark. Okay.
Okay, I have just two more questions.
Teresa, I'm going to kill you.
I want to be, my goal is 8:30, I promise. Okay,
Mine was 7.
There's only 2 more blue items here, so.
I just have 2 questions. Under section 54.422,
Oh, okay. Page 9 near the bottom.
okay, so improvement location permit. I noticed in the hearing officer petitions that they wanted a BZA 2025-51. We have phone shed, bus shelter. What is a lunch shed?
Literally, they have a shed that they have their lunch in.
So, but more than one person. So it's like a cafeteria, they have tables and they all sit down at it?
Apparently so.
Do we have like, I mean, I know what a phone shed looks like, but how big is a lunch shed?
That's an accessory use to their business. In fact, they're going to have to get a construction design release, I believe, for that particular shed.
We don't have to worry about it.
No.
I mean, are we gonna be doing more lunch sheds?
No, I don't see that. I mean, there may be, that's the first one I've come across. They literally have a shed dedicated just for that use because of the nature of what they do in this metal sheet thing. They don't want to, they were eating in there, but it was not a pleasant situation to eat your lunch in such an industrial setting inside this ag barn. And so they brought in a shed, unfortunately without permits, and they went to the board, and fortunately it's way off the road. We haven't received any complaints about their operation, so we'll see.
Okay.
It must be something that's considered in the Amish community because the gazebo factory, there north of the economy, the office building, what used to be the office building for the tile plant, that is their lunchroom.
The old office
The old
building?
office building is
Okay.
their lunchroom.
Okay. That's an old commercial building. Yeah. Let's see, the other stuff is just cleaning things up. The BZA approved hay brokerage as a special exception back in '23. I wanted to include that to the special exception list. There's an error you can see under section 54.405. It has in the body of, you see 150, and the next one under C has 150. I marked those out and put 405. It was referencing the wrong number, so it's just literally errors I find in the ordinance. So D, at the very bottom, only one permit will be issued for residential structure on any parcel in single ownership. But that doesn't take care of the accessory dwelling unit. So I put with the exception of a permitted accessory dwelling unit, a second dwelling approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals, or multifamily dwellings or townhouse dwelling units in permitted districts. And then I put or perhaps just delete that whole section. But, because up above you see in C it says an improvement location permit shall be required for any structures used as a residence. It's already
That's
covered.
what I-
So maybe
That
D
was
is,
the last question I
D is kind of
had,
redundant,
Brad.
you know.
I don't know why we need D
Yeah.
when you say that, so
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah, if you have it up above, just scrap it.
yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna go with D.
Okay, finished.
That's good for that. The rest is just stuff to consider.
Thank you, Laura.
Go for it.
Any other comments, questions? If not, we reviewed the hearing officer petitions. Our next meeting, again, no meeting in October. Laura, yes?
Just before you gavel out here, how does the board feel about having an official public hearing of this? Of course, I'll have it cleaned up and have a recommendation on the lot width and some of the other things in November, at the regular November time. Does the board feel like you're ready, or do you want to consider some more in November? Of course, you'll get a copy ahead of time of the
I think as long
new.
as we get the septic paperwork out and
Yeah.
the emails and stuff, I don't
Okay.
think that's an issue, all right?
I do, I agree.
Yeah, I'd like to move it forward. That'd be super.
Especially since you're leaving in January, we want to get this done.
Well,
Gotta squeeze it for the last bit.
things in there that
And I shouldn't say you're leaving, you're retired.
I'm
That's a
retired.
good thing.
But yeah, I don't know. It's
Abandoned.
just one of those things. I'd like to see more freedom out there, and
So are you thinking like by the middle of October, then we would have something that we could look at, review, to give us? I mean,
yes, my hope is to be able to get it out to you definitely in October, or ideally middle. I can shoot for middle to get it
Okay.
out to you, so you have time to look it over.
That'll give us a couple weeks to look it over, and then you should set a date and say this is the last date for any. That way you have some time to finish it off for the public hearing.
Well, part of the advertisement will be, a document
Right.
of all these proposals. So I have to have that available to the public at the time that I send it out. I should say not send out necessarily, but once it's advertised, in the advertisement, it's going to state that that document's available for viewing. So it better be ready.
Is that 10 days or 2 weeks? 10 days before the meeting or 2 weeks before the meeting?
It's advertised actually more than 10 days prior to the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're gonna send us a copy, we'll have a couple weeks to review, and then we have to have everything to you by such and such date with everyone's approval, 2 weeks before the November meeting.
Meeting date, hang on. I'll get that for you. Hang on. So, Advisory Plan Commission, October 16th is our meeting date. The publishing date for that is October 1st. So I would definitely need any commentary from you prior to October 1st, because it'll be in the paper by that day, on that day. Hold it.
Is that November 1st?
I mean, November 1st.
I think I've got that turned around in my head. Sorry about that.
She said, so we're talking November.
November 1st.
Okay.
I'm turned around. I'm looking at the wrong one.
November
Sorry.
20th is on.
Yeah, I was looking at the next day. Sorry, next
November
normal
1st
meeting.
to have
Okay, back up. So the advertisement date for the November 20th meeting, November 20th, is November 5th. So I would need your comments before then, before November 5th.
Of course, that'll all be explained in your email to us. Okay. And a reminder, no meeting in October 2025. The next meeting will be on Thursday, November 20th, 2025 at 6 p.m. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.